Today, we're diving into the explosive finale of the K-drama, Trigger. In a country where gun violence is practically non-existent, what happens when guns suddenly flood the streets? And what happens when the two men at the heart of the crisis have two drastically different visions for the future? Trigger captivated us with this high-stakes premise, pitting a righteous detective against a mysterious partner as a wave of illegal firearms plunged South Korea into chaos. At its core, the show wasn't just about catching a criminal. It was a battle of ideologies. As the violence escalated, the series forced us to ask, are guns a tool for justice or a harbinger of destruction? In this video, we'll break down the ultimate face-off between Lee Do and Moonbaek, explain the surprising and deeply moving act of a nation, and dissect the massive cliffhanger that perfectly sets the stage for a potential season 2. So let's get into it. The final episode of Trigger isn't a simple action climax. It's a philosophical showdown. The entire series has been building to a fundamental clash between two worldviews, embodied by our two main characters. On one side, we have Moonbaek, a man whose calm exterior masks a deeply cynical and dark belief about humanity. For him, a gun isn't a tool of evil. It's a tool of empowerment. He believes that people, when given the chance, will always choose violence, and his mission is to prove that Lee Do's high moral ground is nothing but naive fantasy. In his mind, a gun-filled society is not one of destruction, but one where the people are finally in control. On the other side stands Lee Do, the righteous sniper-turned-detective. He's haunted by his past and driven by a powerful conviction that people are inherently good and will choose peace. He believes that guns only breed destruction, fear, and chaos. His own personal mantra, that revenge is not always the right choice, directly contradicts Moonbaek's might makes right philosophy. This ideological battle comes to a head in the finale, where their beliefs are put to the ultimate test. Moonbaek orchestrates a gun legalization rally, but his true purpose is to create chaos. He drives a lorry full of guns into the crowd, hoping to spark a violent riot and prove his point. His final, most brutal act is a moment of pure provocation. He is shot, which immediately ignites the crowd. It's left deliberately ambiguous whether he shot himself to start the riot or was shot by someone else, making his cynical martyrdom even more chilling. But Lee Do refuses to play his game. Faced with the man responsible for the city's chaos, with a clear shot at his opponent, he makes a choice that defines the entire series. He doesn't pull the trigger. He drops his gun, a symbolic rejection of violence, and runs to protect a little boy caught in the crossfire. In that one powerful image of him shielding the child, he proves Moonbaek wrong and wins the ideological war. The true resolution of Trigger doesn't come from a shootout between the protagonists, but from the collective choice of the people. Throughout the series, we saw how ordinary citizens were pushed to their breaking points by the sudden appearance of guns. A great example is the bullied nurse. Driven to the brink by her tormentors, she takes a gun, determined to use it for revenge. She represents the potential for a society to give in to violence. But her story becomes a turning point. She sees the chaos at the rally and the powerful image of Lee Do protecting the child. This act of selfless compassion changes her mind. She chooses to surrender her gun, proving that hope can triumph over despair. This single act sparks a chain reaction. The citizens of South Korea, inspired by Lee Do's example, begin to voluntarily surrender their guns to the authorities. This isn't just about giving up weapons. It's a collective decision to reject Moonbaek's cynical worldview. It's a powerful statement that a community, when faced with chaos, can choose to reaffirm its commitment to peace. By the end, the country reestablishes its gun-free status, a massive victory for Lee Do's moral argument. He keeps his job as a police officer and finds a new purpose in taking care of the boy he saved. The show provides a deeply satisfying sense of closure for the core conflict, with hope prevailing and the good guy finally finding peace. Just when we thought the war was over, Trigger pulls one of the most effective cliffhangers we've seen in a while, revealing that Lee Do and Moonbaek's battle was just one small part of a much larger, global conspiracy. So what happened to Moonbaek? He survived the shooting but is left in a coma. His history of cancer and his critical condition mean his chances of survival are slim. The show deliberately leaves his final fate ambiguous, making his last act all the more mysterious. But the final scenes introduce a new antagonist and a new threat. We learn that Moonbeck wasn't working alone, but for a shadowy, global organization led by a figure named Jake. This organization isn't driven by ideology, but by pure profit. Their philosophy is simple: spend $1 to make 5. From Jake's perspective, Moonbeck's actions were a total failure because they didn't lead to a profitable, ongoing conflict. This sets up the chilling final scene. A mysterious blonde woman enters Moonbeck's hospital room with a gun. Is she there to finish the job? Is she a new operative, sent by Jake to eliminate his failed investment and take his place? It's clear that Jake is putting a new, more ruthless, profit-focused plan into motion to bring guns back to South Korea. This leaves the audience with a massive, unresolved question. While Lee Do won the ideological battle and the people have chosen peace, the shadowy forces of greed and power are still out there, lurking in the shadows, ready to strike again. The final scene ensures that while one battle is won, the war for a gun-free society is far from over. So, what's the ultimate takeaway from the ending of Trigger? It's a show that masterfully balances a satisfying resolution with a thrilling cliffhanger. On one hand, we get closure. Lee Do's idealism triumphs over Moonbeck's cynicism. The power of a symbolic act of compassion proves to be stronger than any bullet. The show ends by placing the moral authority not with the police or the criminals, but with the citizens themselves who chose peace. But on the other hand, we're left with the unsettling knowledge that the real enemy isn't driven by a misguided philosophy, but by cold, hard cash. The ending leaves us with hope, but it's a fragile hope, because the war is not over. Let's talk about the very first shooting in Trigger. Yu Young-tae is introduced as a seemingly ordinary civil service exam student, underpaid, overworked, living in a cramped Gashawon with thin walls. He's polite, rule-abiding, yet simmering with anger at every unfair thing he sees. On the subway, he literally witnesses someone refuse a pregnant woman a seat. In class, he's humiliated by a teacher's criticism. Everyday slights push him further down a psychological rabbit hole. He imagines pulling an assault rifle from his guitar case and mowing everyone down, but doesn't. Until one night. That's when his build-up finally snaps. He hears the neighbors having sex, for the 100th time. The walls shake, and his pencil cracks. And so does his restraint. Gun in hand, he shoots through the wall. But it's too late. I already pulled the trigger. The moment he says it, the series essentially declares, this isn't about good versus evil. This is about what happens when internal pain meets external power. From that moment, the show communicates a brutal message. Trauma plus firearms equals chaos. Young-tae isn't a hardened criminal. He's an exhausted, ignored person handed a weapon and allowed or even expected to break. The show doesn't just use him as background. He becomes the incipient revolt, a test case for what happens when the emotionally wounded actually get access to violence. It's tragic, horrifying, but also deeply believable, which is why it's Trigger's darkest, most effective opening. Watching Young-tae's spiral, you start to realize it's not just guns that kill. It's what people have been carrying inside until they crack. Yeah, I know, the video was supposed to go longer, but somewhere around minute 7, I realized I was sounding like a philosophy professor who just discovered crime dramas. So instead of dragging you through 25 full minutes of dramatic monologuing, I'm cutting it short here. You've survived 8 minutes. Be proud. Goodbye. Now go touch some grass after you subscribe.